On this week's episode of Game of Thrones, we set everything on fire. Stay tuned for my Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 4 review. So, this episode, everyone's talking about how it's the best episode of the season. It might be one of the best episodes ever. This episode was great. We're just going to jump right into it. So, the episode starts off basically where the last episode ended. So we start with a shot of Jaime. He's riding away from Highgarden. He has the army. He has the Tyrell gold. And he's having a back and forth with Bronn. And Bronn is bringing the sass. Like, Bronn always brings the sass. He's one of my favorite characters in this show. So Bronn's bringing the sass. And what ends up happening is they just have a back and forth. And they're just trying to figure out what's going to happen with all the gold. At some point, Bronn asks, well, he wants to be paid. He wants his castle. And Jaime's like, when the war's over, you'll get your castle. Calm down. They have this real nice back and forth. And it's just really kind of funny. So next thing we see, we cut to Cersei. Cersei's with Mycroft Holmes. I'm just going to call him that because it's funny to me. But they're having a conversation back and forth about this debt that the Lannisters are going to be paying here soon. And he's like, I don't remember the last time a debt of this magnitude was paid in one installment. And they have this back and forth, and basically what you get at the end of this is we find out that Cersei is now going to have money or be able to get a loan so they can start building up their army and building up their navy and things like that. So they're about to get a little bit more formidable, which is something that they really, really, really need. So the next scene was a little bit weird. Littlefinger's just on my nerves right now. Both these characters are actually on my nerves. And we get a shot of Bran with Littlefinger. So Littlefinger's doing that thing where he explains how much he loved Lady Stark and how much he loved Bran's mother. And this isn't the first time he's done that. We all know that this has been a constant thing since season 1. So he's having a back and forth with Bran. Bran's not really into it. Obviously, Bran sees everything, and he's able to see right through Littlefinger. So it's really interesting to see this dynamic because you're not getting the normal reactions that Littlefinger is normally able to get from the people that he talks to. So the next thing got me so excited. Arya finally got back to Winterfell. So all bets are off timeline right now. Like, we're moving at a pace. We're moving and moving and moving and moving. And Arya gets back to Winterfell. She meets these two guards. These guards are basically like, we don't believe that you're Arya Stark. So then she says something to convince them to just let her into Winterfell. And when their backs are turned arguing about who's going to take her to Sansa, she just walks off and disappears. So she walks off down into this dungeon type area where she used to go as a kid. The guards go tell Sansa that Arya was there, and then Sansa's like, oh, I know where she is. So she goes down and meets Arya in this dungeon. They have this interesting back and forth. It's interesting because the last time they were together, they were really kind of at odds because of what happened with the direwolf and one of Arya's friends. So they've always been kind of at odds. They don't really get each other because they've been totally like separate. They're totally different people. But the interesting here is that you kind of see, what I felt from this scene is that you see them realizing that all the crap that they used to argue about and used to get in fights about is so petty and is so irrelevant at this point. Like, they eventually start getting into this like very like warm banter, but they're just realizing that, hey, we've both had shit times. Family means a lot, so let's work together and let's be family again. That would be really nice. Sansa takes Arya to Bran, and Arya is having this back and forth with Bran, and at one point Sansa's like, now he sees visions, he has these visions, and Bran immediately proves that his visions are real by saying to Arya, like, oh, I thought you actually were going to go to King's Landing because Cersei's on your list. At this point, Sansa ears and face kind of perk up because she was also just told about this list before and asks Arya, well, who else is on your list? And Arya just smiles and doesn't really say anything. She says, oh, well, most of these people are actually dead already. So it's really interesting to see this dynamic during this episode where Sansa is realizing that her family members, her younger siblings, have gone through these crazy, insane transformations, and she's just realizing the magnitude of what's going on here. The next thing that we see is we cut back to Dragonstone. Jon Snow takes Dany into this cave where they're going to be mining the Dragonglass. It's like, I wanted you to see it before we start tearing it apart. So he takes her back into this cave, and they look at the Dragonglass, and then they go back into this back corridor. In this back cave, there are a bunch of hieroglyphics on the wall, these old drawings of the humans and the children of the night working together. And then on the wall, what they see is an image of the White Walkers. So these White Walkers are painted on the wall. These images have been there for thousands of years. So in this moment, Dany is realizing, oh, these White Walkers are real. They are a threat. This is something that I need to worry about. And John's like, so now will you help me? And Dany is, of course, like, I will only help you if you bend the knee. So she's really about this bending the knee thing. I don't think the bending of the knee is going to happen. I think there's going to be some kind of union between them that makes them king and queen of the North. Maybe that'll happen. I don't know. We can't always predict these things. But she's still on and animate about him bending that knee. So we'll see what happens. Let me know what you think is going to happen. What do you think he'll do it? You think he won't do it? Let me know down in the comments. So then they exit the cave and Tyrion tells Dany that the attack on Highgarden didn't go as planned. So all of the ships of her navy are now destroyed, and they didn't kill any of the Lannister army. They didn't kill any of Cersei's army. So she's finding that out. She's angry. She's asked for everybody's counsel. She eventually turns to Jon and be like, what would you do? And Jon explains to her, like, you cannot take your army and you cannot take your dragons and just go destroying cities. That is not going to win you the war in the way that you want to. So he gives her that advice, and then they cut on to the next scene. So the next scene was probably my favorite scene of the season so far. It might be one of my favorite scenes in this show ever. Well, we cut to Arya meeting Brienne out in this common area in Winterfell, and Brienne at this point is training Podrick. So they're training. Arya walks up. She's like, I want to train with you. You're the person who beat the Hound. So in comes this battle that they have back and forth, this training session, which is just starts off great and ends so good. So essentially what happens is Brienne basically has never seen Arya fight or anything like so. She completely and totally underestimates Arya at the beginning. So she takes this lunge. Arya gets like three quick hits on her blade with needle real fast, and Brienne's like, oh, okay, she's getting some skill. And it takes like 2 or 3 goes at Arya before Brienne's like, okay, I actually really have to take this seriously because this girl is legit. This girl can fight. Like, we haven't really seen a lot of Arya's like actual sword training or anything like that, but she is fantastically skilled. Needle makes it so she is not weighed down by anything. She moves so quick and so fast, and she's able to use her opponent's force and burst strength against them. So Arya and Brienne, what ends up happening is Brienne's like, okay, I've had enough of this, kicks Arya in the chest. Arya gets back up. Then they both start fighting at their maximum potential, which ends up with them both Brienne's sword right by Arya's face and Arya with her new dagger right by Brienne's face. And they just have this mutual standoff right there. And it's just so cool. It was such an awesome scene. I watched this scene probably like 5 or 6 times just because I was like, this was so sweet. Arya is quickly becoming my favorite character of the show. I actually definitely think that if anybody is winning season 7, Arya is just low-key underground winning season 7. From that very first scene in episode 1 to now, Arya is just killing the game right now. So they stop fighting, and Brienne's like, where'd you learn how to do that? And Arya is like, nobody taught me how to do that, I taught myself. And you just see the mutual respect that they both have. I'm really hoping later we see in one of these wars where they're just like back to back, just like going at everybody and just taking names. I really want this to be, there needs to be an Arya Brienne spinoff. That needs to be where they're just going around like straight up assassins. Like, that would be so cool. That is totally what I want. But let me know what you guys think. We think we'll get more Arya Brienne fighting scenes where they're just like fighting together. I would love to hear what you guys think. And also want to know what you thought about that scene. I thought that scene was really cool. So then we cut to Theon. Theon gets to Dragonstone. He meets Jon. Jon basically says to him, he's pissed. He's like, the only reason that you're not dead is because of what you did for Sansa, and otherwise I would kill you. And so they have this back and forth, and he's like, what are you doing here? He's like, I come to ask for the Queen's help to get my sister. And Jon's like, the Queen's not here right now. So then it cuts. At this point, I literally stood up because I was so hyped. I was like, oh, we're about to get Dragon Battle. Like, I stood up, I was hyped, I paused it, I was like, oh, we're about to get it. Oh man, I'm so excited. So you cut to the Lannister army. I missed this the first time because I was so hyped up that the gold actually ended up getting to King's Landing. The first time I watched it, I was like, oh my gosh, how is Cersei gonna pay back the bank now? Because they just roasted all of that gold. But actually, the very beginning of the scene, one of Jaime's soldiers comes up and is like, hey, we actually got all the gold. It's at King's Landing. Everything is fine. So that happened. It was crazy what happened next. So Bronn is sitting there talking back and forth with Jaime and some officers. And then he's like, stop, listen. And you just slowly hear the rumbling of the Dothraki on their horses, screaming, charging the Lannister army. So the Lannister army, who's not ready for this battle, gets in line, gets in formation. Then you see the Dothraki, and about like 200-ish yards before the Dothraki get to the Lannister army, Dany, what ends up happening is Dany, on one of her dragons, flies over and just torches part of their army. So Dany's on the back of one of these dragons, and she is just torching this army left and right. And the Dothraki are just going at the Lannister army, and it's just basically a slaughter. It's a complete and total slaughter. The Lannister army has no chance. The dragon just tears up the whole entire army, like all of their wagons, everything. Just torch, 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 torch. So the army is pretty much decimated, and finally Bronn goes to the weapon that Cersei has had made that could possibly take down the dragon. So what happens is Bronn gets to that weapon, he loads it up, he tries to find the dragon, he shoots one arrow at the dragon, misses, okay? With the next arrow, he shoots and hits the dragon and basically where the dragon's like right shoulder is. So it's looking like this machine is not really strong enough unless it had a very, very, very like critical hit in a very critical area. Like it's only going to be able to do damage. It's only going to take one of these dragons down if it's like hits the dragon in the heart or hits the dragon in the face. The arrow hits the dragon in the shoulder. It takes the dragon is still able to fly, at least stable itself until it gets to the ground. So Dany ends up being fine. You're a little bit worried there for a second. So it hits the ground. Dany gets off the dragon, tries to pull out the arrow. The dragon actually, like in its rage, like blows fire and destroys some other stuff. Ends up destroying the giant crossbow with its tail, just decimates it. And then you see Dany trying to pull the arrow out of the dragon. She's obviously not strong enough to pull it out. And then Jaime, in one of the weirdest things that I've ever seen him do, starts charging at Dany and the dragon. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna try to kill Khaleesi. Like, there's no way this is gonna happen. There's no way this is gonna happen. Obviously that dragon's gonna turn its head and blow fire at you. Obviously that's gonna happen. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. You're about to die by fire. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then out of nowhere, what appears to be Bronn dives in front, tackles Jaime into the water as the fire is going right by him. And he's sinking in the ocean with all this heavy armor, and that cuts to the end of the episode. Insane cliffhanger. It's gonna be really crazy to see what happens next week, but this last battle was 20 minutes long, and it was literally fantastic. Let me know what you think about the battle in the comments. Let me know what you think is going to happen to Jaime. Is he alive? Is he going to drown? Are they gonna take him prisoner? Are we gonna see some Tyrion Jaime action next episode? So let me know what you think. Let me know your predictions down in the comments. So like I said, I really enjoyed this episode. This episode happens to be one of my favorites so far, and it just has a couple of great scenes that I really, really enjoyed. It didn't have the usual type of banter that I enjoy. Like, we didn't have any Varys, we didn't have any Tyrion, we didn't have any Lady Olenna, they're obviously gone. We didn't have our sassy banters just going at it this episode, but we got a lot of cool things. I'm glad Arya's back at Winterfell. I was going to be really kind of upset if that didn't happen until later, so I'm hoping that soon she's going to meet up with Jon. I think that that's going to be an awesome reunion. I'm really excited to see that. I'm really excited to see what Cersei does at this point, because Cersei's going to be pissed, and it's going to be awesome to see what happens next. We're getting into these next couple episodes. It's going to start amping up, so stay tuned because it's going to be awesome. If you like what I'm doing here, if you like these videos, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Like I said, I do these videos every week for Game of Thrones. We're going to have some nerdly news coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. This week, we're going to have some other videos coming up in the next couple days. I'm going to try to ramp up and amp up the videos that I'm making, so stay tuned for that. And like I said, my name, Oscar Hampton. This is Boldly Nerd. Later days.